Get out of my car! He swerved to the side of the road and opened the door, gesturing for her to leave. The door slammed, tires screeched, and just like that, the man who had promised to take her to Dubai was gone. Aduke stood there in the scorching afternoon sun, ashamed and embarrassed. The liquid was running down her legs now. A downfall bus slowed down beside her, and she heard the conductor's mocking laughter. Ashawo, see as her fingers they leak. This wasn't supposed to happen. This was not part of her plan. But let me tell you how Aduke got here. 20 years ago, Aduke's mother was coming home from a party very late at night as usual. But this time, she was followed by armed robbers who took everything she had and raped her. 9 months later, Aduke was born. She wanted to hate this child, this reminder of the worst night of her life. But she felt this could be another opportunity to right her wrongs. She then decided to keep Aduke, but she vowed to raise Aduke to be better than her. But as Aduke grew older, she continually broke her mother's heart. She did not fall far from the tree, Aduke's mother would always think worriedly. By the time Aduke was 12, she was already lying to her mother about where she went after school. By 13, she was stealing money from her mother's purse. By 14, she was sneaking out to meet older boys who gave her things her mother couldn't afford. Her mother noticed. She tried everything. Prayers, beatings, counseling, love, anger. Nothing worked. Aduke was hungry for things her mother couldn't give her. She wanted to be like the rich girl she saw on social media. When Aduke was 15, she started sleeping with men for money. By 16, she was pregnant. Unfortunately, she didn't know which of the men was the father. When her mother found out, she sat down on the floor and wept like someone had died. Aduke, why? Your father was an armed robber. He raped me on my way home from a party. I kept it because I thought I could change destiny. But I was wrong. You're as evil as he is. See how much pain you've brought me since your birth. Aduke stared at her mother, shocked. She had never known. Her mother had never told her. God knows I tried. Aduke, I tried to save you, but you've chosen this path for yourself and you will bear the consequences. 2 months later, after Aduke gave birth to baby Bebe, her mother left. No note, no goodbye, she just left. Despite all everyone said, Aduke knew the truth. Her mother had simply gotten tired and given up. Now, Aduke was alone with a baby she didn't want, in a small apartment she couldn't afford, with no education and no future. So she did what she knew how to do. The years were rough. Aduke would leave baby Bebe alone in her apartment and go to clubs and parties, drinking and dancing, while her daughter cried at home. Neighbors would hear the baby screaming and bang on Aduke's door, but no one ever called the police. Once, when Bebe was 3 years old, Aduke forgot her at a nightclub. She had been dancing and drinking with a rich man who promised to take her shopping. When she finally remembered her daughter at 4 a.m., she rushed back to the club, only to find Bebe sitting in a dark corner crying, while a homeless man tried to pull off her clothes. Aduke screamed and chased the man away. She picked up Bebe and held her for a moment. The child stopped crying and clung to her mother. But just then, the rich man called Aduke's phone and she put Bebe down to answer it. That was the kind of mother Aduke was. By the time Bebe was 8 years old, people in the neighborhood wondered how the child was still alive. She was too thin, always dirty, and always hungry. Teachers at her school sent notes home about Bebe falling asleep in class, about the bruises on her arms, about how she would steal food from other children's lunchboxes. But Aduke cared less. Aduke owned a small hair salon, but everyone in the neighborhood knew the truth. She was barely ever in her shop. She was always in some rich man's car, house, or bed. The salon was just for show, just to tell people when they asked what she did for a living. For a while, this life worked. Aduke had nice clothes, expensive wigs, a comfortable apartment, and everything good, until the day everything changed. One of her men friends stopped calling, then another. Within 3 months, her phone that used to ring constantly was now silent. The money stopped flowing, the gifts stopped coming. Aduke was confused and angry. What was happening, she thought. She spent her days at home, bored and restless, scrolling through her phone. She was too lazy to go to her salon. Why bother when there was no money in it, she thought. Bebe would come home from school and find her mother still in her nightgown, still on her phone. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Bebe would say quietly. "Just manage the chips and juice in the fridge, okay?" Aduke would reply without looking up. One day, while scrolling through Instagram, Aduke saw something that made her sit up. It was a video of a woman showing her body before and after a Brazilian butt lift. Aduke watched video after video, her eyes growing wider with each one. This was it. This was the answer, she thought. This was why the man had stopped calling. Her body wasn't good enough anymore. So, she needed a BBL. She jumped up from her bed, screaming with excitement. "I'm getting a BBL!" The next day, Aduke's best friend Brenda came to visit. Aduke couldn't wait to share her plan. Brenda nearly choked on her drink. She put the glass down and stared at Aduke. "You're finally getting out of your mind. That's ridiculous. What do you need a BBL for?" What do you mean, what do I need this for?" Aduke laughed. "This BBL will bring back all my clients and give me even richer ones." Brenda shook her head slowly. "Aduke, you never tire. This may just be a sign for you to leave the scene and do something else. You think I won't do a show work forever?" Aduke's smile disappeared. "Ha, Brenda. So that's how much you want me out of business, so you can take my place. You are jealous." "Jealous?" Brenda stood up, hot and angry. "Aduke, I'm trying to help you. I'm trying to save you from making another stupid mistake. But you know what? I'm done." Brenda grabbed her handbag and stormed out. Aduke stood there furious when she suddenly smelled something burning. She rushed to the kitchen and smoke was filling the room. She grabbed the fire extinguisher and immediately put out the fire. "Bebe!" she screamed. A small figure emerged from behind the refrigerator. 8-year-old Bebe was crying, her thin arms showing red burns, her face covered in soot and tears. I'm sorry, Mommy. I've not eaten since yesterday and I wanted to make noodles," she sobbed. "Haven't I warned you to keep your messy hands out of my kitchen?" Aduke shouted. "This is the 100th time you'll be ruining my kitchen." Aduke didn't wait for an answer. She turned and walked back to her bedroom, leaving Bebe crying in the burnt kitchen. The child eventually cried herself to sleep right there in the kitchen. It was very late at night when Aduke finally remembered Bebe. She found her still lying on the kitchen floor, but unconscious. She rushed the child to the hospital. The doctors treated Bebe's burns and gave her food and fluids. They told Aduke that another few hours and the child might have died from starvation and infection. Aduke sat by Bebe's hospital bed that night, watching her daughter sleep. For a brief moment, she felt ashamed. But by morning, her mind was somewhere else again. She was thinking about the BBL. She was calculating how much money she would need. The surgery cost 5 million naira, but Aduke didn't have it. She had spent everything on clothes, parties and drinks, and she was desperate. That was when she met Joe.